Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. May I take your order? Continuing our quest into multiplying decimals, today we're going to look at using models to represent these situations. And so we're going to try to find the product of whole numbers and decimals to the hundredths, or decimals and decimals to the hundredths. And that's where we're headed. So first, I think we should probably talk about what do we mean when we say use models for multiplying decimals. Like, what is a model in math? And I would invite you to pause the screen and think about this for a moment. You know, do we mean that it's a runway and it's like somebody's walking down it and they're just like flashing maybe ones and twos with their fingers, or they're walking around making multiplication signs with their hands? No, that would be silly. We're talking about using visuals to represent situations. And so we're going to be working with hundredths grids again, right? Hundredths grids. And so just by nature of the name, we know that there are 100 squares in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. By 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? But there are 100 squares in this grid, and that one of those squares, right, would be one out of the total 100. So that's important to note. So in your notes, I would invite you to highlight this, right, that of or groups of means multiply. This is a very powerful two-letter word. When you see that from now on, I want you to picture multiplication. Okay. And so in this first example, we are going to be doing a whole number times a decimal. And when it's a whole number times a decimal, right, in this case we have 2 times 32 hundredths. We are making two groups of 32 hundredths. And this is going to look a lot like repeated addition. So if you'll remember all the way back in topic 2 when we used models, this example is going to look like that, right? Because in our grid, first thing I need to do is make one group of 32 hundredths. So here is 32 hundredths. And then also in my grid, then I need to make a second group to represent both groups. So here is 8 plus 10 is 18. 10 more makes 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. You'll notice that the green represents one group and the orange represents a second group. And so if we stop to think now, how many total squares do I have colored in? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 6 whole rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have colored in 64 out of 100, or 64 hundredths. Right? So again, when it is repeated addition, when it is a whole number times a decimal, notice that both of my colors are going in the same direction, and it looks a lot like repeated addition. Our second example here has a decimal times a decimal. That is super important to note the difference here. Okay? We are going to use this model to show 5/10 times 3/10. Okay, and we're going to talk about it in terms of this fraction problem right here as well. Okay, with your highlighter, and we'll talk about why we're highlighting this in a moment, but just while we're doing it, I want you to know that the answer is going to be the overlap. Okay? So, in this, we're still going to use two different colors, but one of our colors is going to go vertical, up and down, and one of our colors is going to go horizontal, sideways. And just to get in the habit, I always make my first number go up and down and my second number go left and right or sideways. You could do it opposite as long as one of your numbers is going up and down and one of your numbers is colored in sideways. So we're going to represent 5/10. So to color in 5/10, I need to color in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my 10 columns. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Just so you can tell that you've represented 5/10. And that was with orange. And then I'm going to switch to green. And again, going horizontal, I'm going to color in 3 rows. You could color in 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, 3 in the middle. It doesn't necessarily matter as long as you color in 3 rows. The answer is the overlap. It is the squares that have both colors in it. So in my case, it's both orange and green. So if I count up the squares here that have orange and green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by 1, 2, 3, or you can count them individually, there would be 15 squares out of 100 squares in the grid. And so my answer is 15 hundredths. Again, before we go on to this next part at the bottom, I had one color going vertically, I had one color going horizontally. My answer was where the 2 colors overlapped together. Okay. Now if we start to think about what do we notice about the answer and where the decimal place is, I want to go back to the idea that this was the fraction that we solved. And we haven't talked about how to multiply fractions yet, but multiplying fractions is really pretty simple because you literally just get to multiply straight across. And so if we take 5 times 3, 15, and 10 times 10, 100, notice that when I have tenths times tenths, my answer has a denominator of 100. It becomes out of 100, right? That this problem, this fraction problem, gives us this blue fraction answer, which is the same problem and answer that we ended up with in our model. Okay. So when you take a part of a part, and that's what we're doing here, right? I had, in this last example, I had half a pan of brownies, and I ate 3/10 of that half a pan. When you take a part of a part, your answer is going to be smaller or less than the original, right? Our answer is getting smaller. Notice that in this previous problem, my answer, 15 hundredths, is smaller than both of my factors. So here we go. I brought half a candy bar to class, and I'm going to take the half that I brought, right? So here's what I brought to class right here. And I'm going to split this in half again, and I'm going to give half of it to Mr. T. So here's the problem I just did, right? I had half a candy bar. I'm going to give half of it to Mr. T, right? Or half of a candy bar, I'm going to give half of it to Mr. T. I guess it's probably a better way to talk about it, right? Of the candy bar portion that's here, right, notice out of the whole candy bar, Mr. T is getting 1 out of 4 sections. He's not getting the whole candy bar. He's not even getting all of what I brought to school. He's getting a smaller piece here. He's getting a smaller piece here. All right. I'll get you started here, but I would invite you to pause the screen and maybe try this on your own, right? Remember, one of our numbers is going to go vertical, and one of our numbers is going to go sideways. Again, notice I have my green number, 7/10, going vertically, up and down, 9/10 going horizontally or sideways, and my answer is going to be where I have green and orange together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Notice the numbers I am multiplying are the same numbers that I had represented over here. 9 times 7 is 63. 100 squares in a grid, 63 hundredths is my answer. One more to try. Again, this one's a little tricky. You're going to shade in right vertically in both, horizontally in both. So pause the screen and try it. Notice that I have one whole grid shaded in orange and 6 of my 10 columns, right? 1 6/10. And then in both grids I have 2/10. I have 2 rows shaded in. And again, anything that has green and orange is going to be our answer. So, right, we have 2 by all 10, and we have 2 by 6. So over here I have 20, over here I have 12. Total, that's 32 out of 100 squares in a grid, or 32 hundredths. See me with any questions. This is typically the most challenging part of Topic 4 for students, but you're going to complete both 4.3 and 4.5 practice buddies, and have a great day.